2 of the Innovation in Agriculture Energy Opportunity Zone Summit. We are so thankful today to have a returning friend, Greenpoint Research, and a friend indeed. We started with last year in October with companies like Greenpoint Research who said, we want to be a part of the Innovation in Agriculture and Energy Opportunity Zone Summit. And ladies and gentlemen, the presentation that they made, the excitement that they provided to both young students as well as the faculty member, and the discussion around US manufacturing and all the alternative uses of hemp was an amazing conversation. And so today, we're extremely excited to have David Hasenauer, CEO of Greenpoint Research, back with us. We're so excited to have Robin, Chief Marketing Officer of Greenpoint Research, located in Jasper, Florida. This company is on the move, and we will continue to be watching it while we hope to be nurturing the growth, the expansion, the workforce application, the innovation, the research and the science, the health applications, and how partnerships and collaborations can be connected to our universities, especially our HBCU, historically Black colleges and universities, and our minority serving institutions in the emerging area of hemp. Thank you so much, David, for returning. We would love to hear from you on IAEOZ Summit 2021, Day 2. Please take it away.
Thank you very much, Keith. It's very kind words, and we're very excited to be back here and to keep telling the story and to be part of the IAEOZ ecosystem and hope to continue to add some value and hopefully that we can be informative and help and spark some innovation and some ideas and creativity among the people participating and listening again this year. So thank you for having us back. As Keith said, my name is David Hasenauer. I'm the CEO of Greenpoint Research. We were founded in 2016, and we are hemp biomass originators and processors, but our main focus is producing quality, consistent, cannabinoid-based ingredients in bulk goods. That means essentially we grow, process, refine the CBD and other value-add cannabinoids out of the industrial hemp. So hemp is a multi-purpose crop, but the highest portion of the value chain right now in this very new market is cannabinoids, and primarily CBD is the one most everybody has heard of at this point, but it is a growing and ever-changing market, and we're excited to be what we believe on the forefront of that cannabinoid market and looking into it from not just a health and wellness perspective, but composites, manufacturing, and other industrial uses. So we've said we have the stated goal of being, the largest low-cost originator of biomass, and we are on our way to that goal. It's been not without trying times. Obviously, everyone's coming through a unique period here with COVID and returning from COVID and the unique challenges that presents. I know we had lots of issues even, as it relates to P3s and our research partnerships, where we had lack of lab access and lack of ability to go in and carry out some of the critical research. So I know we experienced some of those supply chain and other disruptions with everybody regarding the the fallout from COVID and the issues that happened. When we say consistent quality ingredients, we really comes down to supply chain. That's one of the crazy things about a totally new industry is there really aren't best practices. We're developing that as we go, and that's why we we need the HBCUs and the innovation and the creativity from all the different partners and constituent parties to continue to develop the best processes and practices so that we have what's called an identity preserved product. So prior to even coming onto the panel last year to speak about this, I had the great fortune of having an audience with a large multinational to discuss the use of CBD and the extracted goods from industrial hemp and in consumer goods. And we got to fly up to New York and started talking to them and learning about it and learning about their intake process and where this was going and looking at it. And all of a sudden I kind of got a deer in the headlights look. We were totally unprepared to work with clients of this caliber. And it wasn't just us, it was the industry as a whole. This is totally new, and the standards large scale multinationals are going to require from a product quality and consistency standpoint for products liability and all the other legal stuff that comes into it that that every business owner and operator has to deal with is immense. And having that clarity of supply chain and that consistency of quality, I knew right then and there was going to be a huge mountain to climb, and still is a huge mountain to climb. And one of the places where we're going to need lots of collaboration in the future, and part of that collaboration is people just talking and communicating about what they're doing and what practices are working and how we're making this industry go forward in a transparent, compliant and inclusive way, so that everyone's taking part in it in an honest and transparent way. And so, looking at those challenges and understanding, hey, we need to develop a truly consistent quality product. How do we do that? Well, okay, so we went out and acquired talent. It's a first two problem. We got brilliant people like Robin and our chief science officer, Matt Turner, who has experience with groups like Cargill and these type of companies that we're looking to do business with as the industry matures. And we see we need a tremendous amount of capital investment. It's a heavy lift. It's not something you're going to go do overnight on a benchtop, laboratory scale process. When you're talking about producing ingredients at scale, thinking about like a company like US Sugar that makes standardized sugar and blended products for, sodas and sugars and all and candies and all these different confections all around the world with a standard reaction that's their purchasers can count on every time, has been 100-year process basically for them to develop that. And we're trying to kickstart that in, basically, we've been at it as a industry in the US 6 years. We got 6 years of best practices versus 100 when we're trying to meet the same consumer demands and quality demands that these companies are used to. So that's where opportunity zones come in. We looking around, how are we going to acquire this capital? What are we going to do? We see these programs and we see a tremendous opportunity to go in and seek investment with these groups and these types of investors. And one of the other things we think about is that it aligns policy and local parties, and it's perfect and right for P3s, and especially with the legislation in place about the inclusion of HBCUs and the Opportunity Zone program and how to incorporate those R&D centers. And so we figured that's where we wanted to go. And then October of last year, we closed what I believe to be the first investment in a legal cannabis company, federally legal cannabis company, from an Opportunity Zone fund. And we acquired the facility I'm sitting in today. We call it the Cannabis Center of Excellence. We've invested probably $2.5 million here since acquiring it last November, with much more to come. We're just getting started, and there's a lot of development to come here. And we've been able to have great relationships because of the Opportunity Zone program, not only with the investors, but the local stakeholders. And now we're really looking, how do we expand that? How does that correlate out into ground up economic development. One of the goals of Greenpoint and what we do is to grow the communities that we're a part of. If you don't have a community centered approach, you're not going to have a long-term durable business. You have to take place. Your business has to take place within its context, and that context is the community. And so how do we be a part of that? And so looking at HBCUs, we love it. We had previously, before we got going under the current legislation, worked to conduct this research with Florida A&M, an HBCU. Unfortunately, legislation changes and things force us in different routes, but we've since explored stuff with Florida Memorial and other universities about laboratory testing and others. And now we are operational in the U.S. Virgin Islands and working with the University of St. Croix and different opportunities down there, and looking at how it does expand out into nodes and other operations as you develop the supply chain. And I think the HBCUs can and should play a critical role in that, because each has different specialties, and there's a million different parts of this supply chain that need buttressing and support from bright minds. And so that is why we got into the opportunity zones as a plan of capital acquisition. And we are really just 1 year into the program, but we've made tremendous progress and are very excited for what the future holds as it continues to develop, and we start to see new innovative finance structures as well come into the opportunity zone space. Like I said, we did like the op zone program because it would kind of endear itself to public-private partnerships, and it's something we're experienced with. You have the research that we're doing with Florida State University and some other universities, and looking to expand into other areas, which is a great example. But even more strictly from a economic development standpoint and job creation, partnering here with Hamilton County, Florida, where we're situated today, and receiving some cash incentives to create jobs here, and and accessing that kind of expansion capital for entrepreneurs is critical. And I think again, it's another benefit and best practice, and something that we've had success with that we'd like to convey and help other entrepreneurs, and especially those at HBCUs, kind of follow the mode and the model to get into these kind of pipelines and opportunities to develop new opportunity and new business, especially, like I said, with respect to certain areas in the supply chain that need it, where we see great opportunity like laboratory testing and product testing and product development. But we've had great success here with Hamilton. We're really enjoying working with the parties, and really hope to do more of that as we grow and scale and look to take the next phases of this journey. So, the hemp always gets a lot of credit for being able to put into 25,000 products, and that's true, and it's growing. But each of those products requires a totally different supply chain. The fiber production versus cannabinoid production are vastly different, and then even the post-processing, as you get down and do all the different commodities, requires a million different things, even just in the edible oil sector, which is kind of the cannabinoids and where we would situate ourselves as our primary business. But then looking into different additives and antifungal qualities and stuff into maybe insulation or plyboard, or then you're using the actual hemp fiber and other uses for those different durable commodities and construction goods, or if it's just the actual pressed cold hemp seed edible oil, or the protein from the milled seed hulls. So all that is there and growing, and that's tremendous growth opportunities in agribusiness here as we scale. And it's really tremendous with some of the supply chain challenges that we've seen come from COVID and the subsequent reactions. It's we're actually price competitive on hemp fiber versus pine fiber and some of these other softwoods for the first time ever. Previously it was so cost inhibitive for hemp, to get to a scale to be in that, financial matrix where builders, manufacturers, and other, providers would start to look at introducing it into the supply chain. But, we have a market opportunity now, and now we just need some bright minds to turn that, market opportunity and, put some feet to dreams and build the infrastructure and the supply chain around it to make it happen. So that's talking about the supply chain. There's still the four kind of major prongs we look at. There's genetics and seed breeding and development, and we take place in that. We do specific cannabinoid focus breeding and development to include patenting stuff for sterile hemp, where cross-pollination of the female plants would prevent the CBD or other production. So looking at creative things like in the actual seed and genetics arena, and then you have farming, cultivation, and production is a major area. That's kind of the next part down the chain. And there's a lot of interesting programs there for first-time farmers and minority farmers and other programs where the opportunity to get into agricultural land ownership, land development, and leasing is tremendous, especially in a tax advantage way, where a lot of these are situated in opportunity zones and rural areas of opportunity. And then you have the processing, whether it's for fiber, grain, or cannabinoids. After you grow it, you harvest it, you have to turn it into value add goods. And then kind of that next phase is, what you need to have that nexus between processing and manufacturing is really where I think we're going to see a lot of innovation over the next 24 months in the industry, because all those manufacturers are going with consumer demand, but they need a product that meets their spec to come in from the bulk good manufacturers. And that's really where we have such a disconnect. There's nobody, we're really not at scale. We saw hemp acreage go from, in 2018, 60,000 acres in the US to 2019, 180,000 acres in the US, to 2020 to 50,000. And this year we only grew 35,000 acres of hemp, which is a short market. We have more demand than that. But there was an oversupply, as with any commodity industry. So the production side has been lagging. But as a result of that, you have a bunch of small operators and small processors and small growers. So batch consistency and product consistency, when coupled with the variability in genetics in a new industry, the idea that you're going to get a uniform product time and time again, it's highly unlikely in today's market, which is something that has to be solved for market growth and more consumer adoption. So that nexus between the processors and the end product manufacturers is wide open for R&D activity, as well as new business starts. And that's so we touched on a lot of those areas where affordable medicine, where obviously everyone sees CBD and the therapeutic properties, but I think the bigger opportunities and bigger areas for research at this moment, especially considering Epidiolex and some of these companies have already come to market with FDA approved drugs and are going to continue to build moats around those sets of intellectual property, would be the non-consumable uses, where we've seen early proof of concept as of CBD as a use for agricultural pesticides. We've seen some early proof of concept for use as a wash for produce that extends the shelf life of produce 8 to 10 days. That's especially prescient when we're talking about like our partners in the USVI or Puerto Rico that have food security issues, where they get lettuce that hits the shelves and they got to eat it in a day or the nutrition starts to fall off. And that, that same idea and concept would be aptly applied to food deserts and other areas here in the US where we have, especially again, compounding supply chain issues. So again, not just looking at the affordable medicine, but what other areas outside, kind of the mainstream idea of what hemp and cannabis is. Everyone can make, gummies and, those CBD gummies. We don't need more CBD gummies. We need, expansion outside that arena and into some real world mainstream applications to grow the crop and the opportunities. And the best way to do that is always ground up. So again, getting back into the idea of the research nodes. So, with that said, and where these opportunities are going, that's kind of, something I'd really like to talk to you more about, Keith, is, we have this opportunity. We have 25,000 youths, and we need to connect a lot of nodes of research to come in and develop, these products, as you see kind of on the slide, the multi-prong hemp industry. Where do we go from here? How do we make sure that this is inclusive, and how do we make sure not only is it inclusive, but that we use the beneficial aspects of this program to scale R&D and opportunity in a rapid manner when we're thinking about 100-year deficit from a crop competition standpoint compared to corn or any of these other commodities as inputs. And it really breaks down into kind of these three areas, standards, processes, and policies. And we would intentionally put policies last because standards and processes should, naturally set policies and not the other way around, especially if we're looking for sustainability and inclusion. It should be open to everyone, and then the best and brightest should thrive. And so as we go forward, those are the challenges. And I think one of the biggest challenges, as I start to wind this up, it comes from a policy standpoint, and understanding that that 0.03, the 0.3 standard for hemp, and the keeping it below that Delta 9 THC compliance threshold is ultimately arbitrary, and it hurts, by and large, small producers more than anyone else because of the cost of compliance testing, monitoring, and all the other stuff that goes with it. And to some of it, it's just, again, it's a policy that led standards and processes instead of the other way around, because it's you could go up to a 1% THC threshold and have it still be ultimately non-psychoactive. And the honest truth is that once you process it, you have different variability and concentration of THC throughout the working product, or the work in progress materials that everyone's trying to figure out anyway. So it's just not a feasible approach, and ultimately hurts the smallest operators to the greatest degree. So it's something that needs to be fixed as we start moving towards a new farm bill and looking at how we're going to really expand this industry and make it more open and economically viable for everybody. I'm sorry, you're on mute, Keith.
David, you have done an excellent job, an amazing job. And you may not even be finished, but I wanted to give the audience the opportunity to get a full picture of appreciation for where you started, as you've outlined. That building was there in concept on an architectural rendering, but you're sitting in it now. That's progress. The staff that you have grew, jobs you've created, and the funding that you received, I believe it was from EDA, because in part of the job creation, because of the fact that it was in an opportunity zone. You are on an emerging science and research to commercialization program here. And if you're not one of the largest, you may be one of the first, particularly in that geographic location. What we want to do is make sure that you continue to scale. And so I want to ask you just a couple questions that lead probably us into workforce development and some areas that I'm sure Robin is going to be able to cover for us. But first, let me just say congratulations for putting the pillars in the ground, the roof on the top, and everything that goes on inside that operation. You've made it clear that it hasn't been easy, but you've done with what our most successful entrepreneurs have done. You've taken an idea, you've taken ingenuity, you've taken commitment, and rallied sufficient enough troops. Interestingly and uniquely so, the kind of investors who would embrace your move forward. We want to try to make sure that this translates to not only expanding Greenpoint research, but taking this as a model that we go into government, as you mentioned many times, the Farm Bill. We want to go into certain agencies who can recognize that it's this type of research that ultimately commercializes solutions that help our manufacturing process and our industrial base. Why don't you share with us, what do you see as, if we could handle this greatest challenge, if we could provide this solution today for Greenpoint research, how would that propel your operations even that much further?
It's well, all economies come to supply and demand, and creating that nexus between processors and manufacturers, and developing that IP and funding that research scales the market. And a rising tide lifts all ships. The bigger the market is, the bigger the opportunity is for everybody. And solving those critical issues and creating those opportunities will just spark the growth to just tremendous levels. We're in the first inning of a 9-inning game, and now's the best time for R&D. There's not only is there the world of opportunity out in front of you, but there's also no detractors. There's no one that says, no, we don't think you're right. And you get to be able to do some of the stuff we're doing in agriculture and what we're doing with hemp and some of the other stuff we're doing, in mainstream agriculture. We would never get a chance to try it. There's not those opportunities because, even if it's the wrong practice, they've adopted it as the best practice. And sometimes 100 years of history are insurmountable when it comes to practices in some of these industries. So it is great in that it is open. There are no limitations or detractors that you would have in some of the more mature industries. And so the speed at which we can grow and the impact with which these research dollars and policy changes can have in a short term is tremendous compared to what you would see in other segments of agriculture. So, focus the effort here. We have set practices in these other industries. Develop a new industry. We have a totally new commodity for the first time. Definitely in my lifetime, I can't think of the last time a commodity just kind of popped up overnight. And so that's a kind of a fallacy. I shouldn't say it just popped up overnight. We've been using it for 10,000 years, but it became legal overnight. And
Right.
Let's sponsor that research. Let's give these kids the opportunity to go out and create something new and create an opportunity not only for themselves, but an opportunity to create a better world for everybody.
Tell us how the HBCU can follow your model and even connect with your model as you've leveraged opportunity zones, because that's the basic foundation by which a partner becomes a more viable partner.
Absolutely. So I think one unique thing is every HBCU should have a foundation, and the level to which they're capitalized might vary in great degree depending on the size of the institution. But wherever it's at now is almost irrelevant because of the opportunity that you have from an investment standpoint and the ability to acquire some of these things, especially looking at some of the more intricate parts of the op zone rule. I'm a very mediocre attorney, so I'm definitely not offering legal advice or saying that this is 100% true, but I am pretty sure that any building that's been abandoned for 10 years or more, or any property that's been abandoned for 10 years or more, even if it's in an opportunity zone or not, qualifies for opportunity zone treatment, especially for the inclusion as opportunity zone property for an opportunity zone business. So looking at people that have agricultural land that they're not using, that they could contribute to an HBCU foundation as an in-kind exchange for an OZ fund, and the ability to, acquire distressed assets under, tax advantage situations only. And then, once you have assets, then that's assets are opportunity for, especially for young entrepreneurs and the students within those organizations. That's where, you go and look to leverage those and turn those assets into, sorry, I'm getting some lights flickering, but that's where, the acquisition of that capital stack and helping create access to capital because of the unique regulations here is something that I think is very valuable for the HBCUs.
So David, are you saying that Greenpoint Research is in a position to actually come to a president and their board of directors and provide consultative ideation around what their possibilities and even probabilities could be? And during that process, you would probably find yourself assessing your own recognition of whether that university's readiness is for, to be a viable partner or even a research partner. Is that an approach you're taking?
It's not one we haven't really looked at consultation as a part of our business model, but rather, just an open conversation. I'd be happy to sit down with any university president and discuss, steps that I believe they could take to make their university both more investment friendly, from a foundation standpoint, especially with the flexibility these foundations have to invest in startups and other companies, and how they could create, a really interesting program given, the newness of both hemp opportunity zones and everything to incentivize investment in the university and opportunity for the students that would like to start businesses.
Okay, now that's a tremendous incentive. I want a last question on your opportunity zone phase of where you are now. Maybe give us an insight on how that either was structured, where you are now as it relates to the legislation, and where the legislation is allowing investors to still at Greenpoint Research enjoy up till I guess 5 more years. And in that 5-year period, what's your projection of activities that will ensure the ROI that was the baseline, and then maybe even grow that ROI for your investor community?
Absolutely. So, the one thing is, by re-headquartering and situating the operations where we have both here and in the U.S. Virgin Islands, is all of our critical activity and the bulk of our employment opportunities happen within opportunity zones, which is a critical factor in the compliance. So, not only setting ourselves up for the investment and the opportunity that we've already had, but as we go forward and that clock's ticking and the people exit more investments and other areas and look to allocate capital, I fully expect opportunity zones to be a big factor in future capital allocation and tax planning for high net worth individuals, especially looking at a macro policy area. We're probably going to a higher tax jurisdiction, most likely. There've been rumors to move the capital gains tax as high as 45%. And if there's any indication that that's going to happen in the next 5 years, I think the amount of capital that you'll see come into opportunity zone funds is going to be extremely substantial. I wouldn't begin to put a dollar value on it, because it's I wouldn't begin to be able to ascertain the amount of unrealized capital gains that are in existence today. But I'm sure it's in the trillions, if I had to guess. So the potential market and investment market is vast and growing. And so, for us, it's coming up with initially with that planning and that idea that you're going to be able to situate your business in a compliant manner. And again, I think that's one of the advantages of the HBCUs and being able to have, those nodes, because it's opportunities for, where you can get those critical metrics of job creation and employment numbers and asset valuation in those key zones. And even better is, especially from an entrepreneur. So if I'm speaking for a student at an HBCU starting that business, when you look to exit your business in 5 years and you're situated in an opportunity zone, well, just on base math, if we stay at the 23.5%, your business in and of itself is going to be at least, 23.5% more valuable than someone that's similarly situated as you, not in an opportunity zone, because the investor that's putting his dollars in you is getting to take a tax savings, so
Right.
and defer a gain. So when you're looking at setting it up, that's part of the consideration and part of the tremendous opportunity for HBCUs and students at them.
Would that be your same pitch for minority farmers, or would it be something customized and very different?
Yeah, it would be a little different. I think you would still want to target opportunity zones, because you're seeing the aggregation of agricultural land by venture capital firms increase significantly in the last 5 years. So as an acquisition target, if you're starting a business, you want to have a exit or some kind of capital event on the back end of that. I think you can look at some of the same program, but more so, I think what you're going to really want to do is you got to achieve economies of scale. And there's these first-time farmer loans and minority farmer loans are tremendous economic vehicles, but they would be best served if you had a co-op where you could find a large tract in an opportunity zone and divide it up and farm it together and take advantage of economies of scale. New farm starts are expensive. And again, talking about large multinationals that have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of acres. Wow. In the US, so on a center pivot in agriculture, it spins in a circle, and the part where the water doesn't spray in the square field, we call them dry corners. There's big companies that have more dry corners than, total acres of hemp cultivated in the US. So, it's hard to say you're going to get in and compete at an agricultural price point at some of these well-established multinationals. And that's why we've seen the consolidation in agriculture. But especially, looking again, HBCU graduates, most HBCUs or a lot of HBCUs are land grant universities and have significant agricultural presence. So looking at how to set up a system to pair, like-minded graduates from these agricultural programs to create these co-ops and create these farm starts that have enough critical mass to be price competitive. Would be interesting. It would be quite an undertaking, but just from like I said, a unit cost, because it's even like we've looked at it, we would prefer to farm with partners who already have existing farms. We've tried to do new farm starts, and we've tried to experience that as Greenpoint, and ultimately the cost has proven difficult. It's been a tough battle. These guys that have, it's just a different ball game when you're thinking of preparing land. So that would be my bit of advice. Is definitely the agricultural production side is very hard, very capital intensive to a much greater degree than any other parts of the supply chain, and it's something that is most definitely going to be best accomplished with a strength in numbers approach.
So this is literally the CEO of Greenpoint Research reaching out to minority farmers and indicating a new market opportunity and a strategy that could be very successful without much question of its success. I'm hearing that, I'm seeing that. You feel that literally is a realistic part of your corporate commitment and culture?
We try to be open to anybody that wants to have a conversation about participating in the hemp industry, and I try to give them honest advice. That's most you've been around a lot where people would just try and sell anybody seeds and tell them to go get into the industry, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to ever tell somebody to go do something that I think they're going to fail at. But if I can provide value add advice and give some market insight and a plan of attack now, I'm almost a decade into the industry. I would like to have that conversation with anybody that's willing.
Oh, that's fantastic. Robin, there's just enough room for you to share about your perspectives on the workforce development side. Really excited how last year you really saw the opportunity for online training, and especially with young people and students like those of Joyce Matthews here at Fairfax Public Schools. And now that I think she's on a retired basis, she's probably available to make sure that these sessions with young people start early. And why don't you share with us a few of your thoughts of what you just heard as a summary, and talk a little bit more about the workforce as we wrap up.
Sure, absolutely. No, so David covered a lot of the topics already, which was great. The industry is growing. There's so much opportunity for everyone. And three of the key areas where I see opportunity for collaboration with Greenpoint across the whole spectrum of the innovation ecosystem that you're helping facilitate. So one is obviously innovation, research and development. There's so much opportunity out there. I would advocate for people to consider hemp as you're thinking about your product roadmap. Hemp is not only a product, but it's a material. And so from some of my past work in partnership with Oak Ridge National Laboratory, we worked with a lot of bio-derived materials, especially in composites, so we could see what was happening with bamboo. And those conversations are still continuing. One of the challenges we had, frankly, with composites and some other materials was the fact that they are not necessarily, the standards aren't out there. So for manufacturing, so getting those integrated into the standards, definitely think about that. So as people are writing grants and reading grants, think about all the materials that can help complete this task or whatever the end goal is. So that's definitely one piece of advice I would have. I would also say, think about hemp as a product, think about hemp as a material, think about hemp as an employer. There are about 321,000 employed in the legal cannabis industry right now. And that was in the Washington Post this week. By the time this actually airs, it may be more. And my best guess, honestly, is that it's probably a multiplier of that, because the way it was calculated, it doesn't include all of those in manufacturing who are utilizing hemp. So we do have some halo effect there. So thousands are already employed in the hemp industry. I would also say, think about hemp as a catalyst, as an economic driver. So when we look across the spectrum of what happened in the last 2 years, with COVID alone, there was a lot of conversation out there about commercial real estate. We saw people working from home. We wondered what's going to happen to corporations. And we did see a big decline in people working out of offices. We saw things that were shut down. But you know what else we saw? We saw a lot of CBD shops opening up. We saw a lot of people opening up dispensaries in states where it's legal. And we saw cannabis taking the place of some of those businesses. I mean, this is just adaptation at its best, really. People taking opportunity of real estate that was open in order to look at a product, and a multitude of products actually that are interesting to people and that help people. So those are some of the things I would say. I would also say, think about how we can work together. This industry, it's small, but it's growing. And as David mentioned, there's opportunity for everyone out there. This space is plenty big enough, and I think it's only going to grow. David mentioned this is one of the only times in history we may have an opportunity to really help facilitate the growth of a new commodity. That's huge.
Yes.
So David mentioned in his lifetime, and I know people that work in our company and work with our company that are have been in these industries for years and years, and they say this is one of the reasons that they're attracted to this industry, is because they said we can't reinvent cotton, we can't reinvent peanuts. This is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity, and we definitely believe that.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Greenpoint Research. Robin Pate, Chief Marketing Officer, and David Hasenauer, CEO. Two people that represent a company that's fully committed to opportunity zones, fully committed to saving the world when it comes to health and a product that actually could make a difference in one's health, and also to open up the doors of research in a way that so much innovation can pour through and create new opportunities in the industrial market, in the education market, and also clearly in the consumer market. And I'm just so proud to have an association here at the IAEOZ Summit, KDM and Associates, and we are certainly positioned to help minority businesses, minority farmers, HBCUs, and those in opportunity zones to come to a Greenpoint Research for the point of facts of how to get started, of how they can partner and scale, and who knows else, the new opportunities that we can create together. I'm so looking forward to it. And Robin, thank you so much. David, thank you so much for, once again, year 2 being a part of this. We can't wait for this to air globally. We can't wait for this to be shared by you all and your stakeholders and your social media, and so that more people can learn not only about Greenpoint Research, but the process to engage the supply chain so that we literally create jobs and open up minds. And thank you so much for partnering with us on that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's always an honor to work with you and a pleasure. And we look forward to communicating with anyone who wants to learn and grow. We're always happy to help. We're a very friendly audience. And again, definitely committed to the success of all of the people that we're working with this group and in the industry.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.